Hello and welcome to Favorite Books of 2019. There have been some amazing books that were published this year, and I am going to share with you 19 of my favorites from 2019. So we're going to jump right into it. But before we do, I want to remind you that many of these books have appeared throughout the year, either on a Growing Book by Book book list or over on my Instagram page, where I share my new finds each and every day throughout the week. So make sure you are subscribing to Growing Book by Book, and make sure you're following over on Instagram so that you can see all the new favorites of 2022. All right, so let's jump in. We are going to start, and I have these kind of categorized, and we're going to go through them kind of quickly, but know that, like I said, that you can find them on Growing Book by Book book lists, and or I've shared them on Instagram or via my newsletter. So make sure you're following along in those three places. All right, up first, we're going to talk favorite books for toddlers. So the first one is Farm Block. And if you're familiar with this series, there are a couple of books in this series, a handful of books in this series right now, and they're thick. This is a thick book. I'm talking like a couple inches thick, and heavy duty pages that fold out and explore all the aspects of the farm. It's a really fun book, bright and colorful, and actually one of my favorite books, probably for talking about the farm in general, as well as for the board book category here. And then the next one for the young ones is One Fox, a counting book thriller by Kate Reed. So this one works for toddlers, but it also works really well for preschoolers to work on counting, and it's kind of a fun twist. Sometimes counting books can honestly be kind of boring, but this one actually has a story that goes with it. So a counting book plus like a real story to go with it. So definitely check out One Fox. This is a hardcover picture book right now. I think it would make a great board book, so we might see that maybe down the road of this one being turned into a board book. All right, moving on. The next set of books, I have 3 of them, and these are books that make super funny read-alouds. And I'm going to show you 3 of them, and all 3 of them work whether you're reading one-on-one or if you're doing a whole group read-aloud in the classroom or at the library. So these 3 picks, because I had a hard time narrowing it down to 2, are great funny read-alouds if you need a laugh from the kids, and also great for whole group read-alouds. So the first one is, that's very big, see my face over here, here we go, The Very Impatient Caterpillar. So this can be one that you use if you do a unit on the life cycles or on butterflies in the spring, but it's also works really well for just talking about patience. So the caterpillar in this story is extremely impatient and just cannot wait for the process of going from caterpillar to butterfly. And it's a silly kind of tale of like, come on, like he's like, is it time yet? If now, like he's only been waiting for a few minutes, and what do you mean I have to wait days until I turn into a butterfly? So it will garner lots of chuckles. Like I said, whether you're reading this one-on-one in a small group or with a whole group. So the next super funny one is called Who Wet My Pants? And this one, I would say, is probably, if my husband had to pick his favorite book to read aloud to the kids this year, it was probably this one, Who Wet My Pants? It's at the top, you see it there, it says it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. And so this bear is convinced that somebody wet his pants, and he pretty much suspects everybody that he encounters, but he may have jumped to conclusions a little too quickly, as we find out at the end of the story. My third pick for fun read aloud is Bruce's Big Storm by Ryan T. Higgins. I absolutely love this author illustrator, one of my all-time favorite illustrators. The pictures are absolutely gorgeous. You may be familiar with Mother Bruce and then Santa Bruce, and there was a third one. This is Bruce's Big Storm's the fourth one, and now I'm drawing a blank on the third one, but they're all equally as funny. Probably my all-time favorite is Mother Bruce, although I am partial to Santa Bruce too. But Bruce's Big Storm is, if you've loved any of the Bruce books before, you definitely want to grab this one, and it does make a really wonderful whole group read aloud also. All right, we're going to keep plowing through. The next two books I have are read aloud books that have a very powerful message to them. And are multicultural in nature and beautiful books to add to your bookshelf to show diversity. So the first one is called Between Us and Abuela, a family story from the border. It's about some kids who go to the border to visit their grandmother, who is in Mexico, and they are in the United States, and communicating through the fence. And it's very touching. It's a very powerful book, and it's a very beautiful book. So Between Us and Abuela. The next one is called The Proudest Blue, a story of hijab and family. And oh my goodness, I loved this book on so many levels. But one of my most favorite parts was at the end of the book, the author of the story, there's a whole full page of a beautiful picture of her. And I thought it was so powerful and so meaningful in the context of this book and being proud about who you are and embracing that. So gorgeous book, wonderful message, great read aloud, and a great discussion starter. All right, the next two also have a wonderful, sweet, powerful message to them, but I grouped these two together because these next two work really well as a whole group read aloud. So the first one is Saturday, and you may be familiar kind of with the look of this book. This author also wrote Thank You, Omu, which was Jumpstart's Read for the Record book this year. And I actually designed some activities to go with that book that you can search for on Growing Book by Book if you just search in the search bar, Thank You, Omu. So this is the second book by this author, and this one is called Saturday, and it's this beautiful story about a mom and a daughter who get to spend the only day of the week that they get to spend together, that's like their time together, is on Saturday. And they have wonderful things planned for Saturday, and things don't go according to plan, but ultimately at the end, it's really what matters most is that they're together and they got to spend time together. So it's a beautiful book, a beautiful message, and works really well as a whole group read aloud. The next one is called Around the Table That Granddad Built. This one tugged at my heartstrings. A beautiful, diverse book about all the different family and friends that come to the table to share a meal together. Both the Saturday and Around the Table That Granddad Built work really well for preschool and up as a whole group read aloud. All right, the next two I have are actually perfect for back to school time. So we're not in back to school time right now, but they're definitely two that you want to put on your radar for the summer. And the first one up is, oh, that's a super small picture, The King of Kindergarten. And this is by the same author who wrote Crown and Ode to the Fresh Cut, which was one of my very, very favorite books. I'm trying to remember if that was last year or the year before, within the last couple of years. The other back to school book is a sweet, sweet book, and that one's coming up super small too. I apologize. Truman. And this is about a turtle who wonders where his girl went, and she has gone off to school in that time of waiting for her to come back and processing being alone and changes and things like that. So these are two beautiful books to read at back to school time. And our next two are informational picture books that are super great for whole group read alouds. So sometimes informational books are best shared in small groups or one-on-one. I like these next two books because they work really well for sharing one-on-one in a small group or as a whole group read aloud. Give Me Back My Bones. Oh, this works on so many levels. Whether you're talking about bones in human anatomy and doing a unit on that, you could easily do it on, in September for Talk Like a Pirate's Day. There's so much. This is a book that you can use for rhyming. It's got so much, and it's got a really cool poster that unfolds. So the dust jacket, if you get the book, if you purchase the book versus getting it from the library, you can take the dust jacket off and it unfolds into a skeleton. So it's pretty cool. I would say this is one of my all-time favorites on the whole entire list. The next one might seem a little odd, and this is a little bit small too. This one is called Fungus is Among Us, and you're like, fungus? Who wants to read about fungus? How can fungus be interesting? But this book was a lot of fun and packed with a lot of information about fungus, and the kids would have so much fun going out on an exploration outside looking for different fungus that they read about in the book. Plus the end papers in this book are absolutely beautiful. Love them. So 2 informational picture books that make really good read alouds. All right, up next we're going to talk wordless books. So I have a rather large wordless book list on Growing Book by Book. If you just go to growingbookbybook.com and in the search bar type in wordless books, I have a gigantic list that's printable. In fact, all of the book lists published in the last couple of years on Growing Book by Book have printable book lists so that you can take them to the library or stick them in your lesson plan binder, whatever you need. I'm trying to make it convenient for you. So I have that big wordless book, but these are 2 new books that are going to get added to that list. The first one is Fly by Mark Teague, a wonderful, prolific author. And this is a story about a little bird who it's time to fly, but because he needs to go, or she, can't remember if it's a he or a she, needs to fly south for the winter, and Mama Bird kind of encouraging the child to, come on, gotta learn how to fly, we gotta fly south. And little bird's like, oh, yeah, I could take a plane, I could ride a hot air balloon, I could fly a kite, whatever. There's other ways to get there. I don't need to fly. So this is a really fun book to talk through. Wordless books are wonderful on so many levels. If you go to the post on Growing Book by Book, I have the whole first part talks about how to use wordless books and why they're so important to use with kids of all ages. The second one was a favorite of my kids because my kids really love wordless books. And this one is Stormy, a story about finding a forever home. And this is about a little homeless dog who a woman discovers underneath a park bench, and gradually they build a relationship over time. And in the midst of a storm, one evening, the 2 connect permanently to be together, and the woman takes in this dog into her home and creates a forever home for him. So it's a really beautiful story. It's one that will be going on our list. We have a whole book list just about rescued pets or rescued animals or stray animals, and this will be going on that list. But if you just search rescue animals in the search bar of Growing Book by Book, you can see a whole book list that we have of stray and rescued animals. All right, we have 4 more to go. So just a reminder, all of these books have either appeared either in one of my newsletters, which I send out weekly newsletters, have appeared on one of the book lists on Growing Book by Book this year, or have appeared on my Instagram feed, which is just at Growing Book by Book. So please be sure you're following along in all 3 places so that you won't miss any of the new books that are wonderful to share in 2020. All right, up next we have beginning readers, easy readers. This, oh my goodness. So I have had at the beginning of the year a beginning reader who is now transitioning into a chapter book reader, which is exciting. But this was one of his favorites to read over and over and over. This is Chicken Brain, Smell My Foot. Now, this works wonderfully for kids who are learning how to read and need those beginning reader books. But it also works as a really funny read aloud. I read it aloud to both of my boys several times, and they read that on their own too. So either way, it's a hilarious book to add to your shelves. The second one is one of my favorite authors. I've been following him since he started publishing books, Jonathan Fenske, and this one is I Will Race You Through This Book. And this little bunny rabbit is challenging the reader through a race through the book. So really a fun one to work on fluency in speed and reading, which we know beginning readers need. Plus, it's very comical and fun and interactive. So I Will Race You Through This Book. Our last two are early chapter books. These can be used for those kids who are transitioning in from beginning readers into chapter books, early chapter books. They still have picture support in them, but they also make really wonderful read alouds for younger children too, kindergarten, first grade age. But then second graders and third graders can read them on their own too. So the first one, if you are familiar, if you have been around Growing Book by Book for any time, you know that Zoe and Sassafras by Asia Citro is one of my all-time beginning reader series. This is book number 7, I believe, in the series, and this one is Zoe and Sassafras, Grumplets and Pests, and just as delightful as the first 6. Wonderful, wonderful stories. I love how much science is incorporated into the book. There's lots of fantasy. Kids love talking animals. There's plenty of talking animals in here, and it's so nice to see the characters reappear from previous books, and we get to meet some of our favorite characters from previous books, such as Tiny, in this book. And the last one is Juana Lucas, Big Problemas by Juana Medina. This is also a series which is really important for early chapter books, to have series, because what I like to do is read one book with my early chapter book reader to set the setting and talk about the characters, and then they can go and read the other books in this series. And this is a wonderful book that is multicultural and a wonderful and timely story, and lots of picture support for those early chapter book readers. So those are, in 19 minutes, 19 of my favorite books from 2019. I read oodles of books each week, brand new books, to sort out the ones that are the best and then share them with you. So I invite you to follow along on Growing Book by Book, sign up for our newsletter, and follow along on Instagram at Growing Book by Book. So I will see you all through 2020 with more wonderful book lists to share with you to help you reach your growing readers. Until next time, I'm Jody. Bye.